how did you get the job on Jerry Springer?
I think, if I can recall correctly, I think in 2006, I probably might have my years off a little bit, but 2006, Steve Wilkos got his own show. So when he started his show, they needed to find another Steve Wilkos for the show. So they found Pete Kelly. Pete Kelly, I grew up with as a little kid, and then we became partners on the police department. And we were partners for about 12 years on the police department. And he had done a year of Jerry, and then something happened. There was another opening, and he was able to get me on, put in a good word. I interviewed, and the next day they gave me the job. So it was, I believe that was 2006. And then I knew Jimmy Sherlock too, through mutual friends. And I think he was one of the original. I think he started the security with Steve. So he was on there for a long time. So that helped to have him. So I would say Pete got me the job on Jerry Springer. But it didn't hurt that I knew Jimmy Sherlock.
Oh, no, right, exactly. Yeah, and that's funny because Pete told me that he knew a guy, Mike O'Connor, who was one of the original guys, and he knew Mike and introduced.
Yeah, I think that's how it happened. They were looking for another guy to fill Steve's spot. Mike O'Connor worked on the show and was good friends with Pete, and that was his suggestion. And at the time, it was only Chicago police is how they wanted it. So, I mean, when it comes to, if you're looking for if I can swear or not, but if you're looking for a badass police officer, Pete was the right guy to find. And I was his partner, and then he was able to get me on a year later. And it worked out great. I was on the show. Till I believe it ended in 2018. So we were pretty fortunate in Chicago as a police officer. You can work side jobs.
Right.
On the East Coast, New York, you can't. It has to go through the department. So what happened was once the show moved to Stamford, Connecticut, to the East Coast, well, we were just like, well, that's over for us. We're not. Why would they fly a couple dummies out there when they can just get guys out there to do it? But they couldn't do it. So lucky for us, Rochelle Wilkos, who was the executive producer, really liked us. One, because Steve was used to be a Chicago police officer, and she probably just had compassion for police or whatever. But she really liked us. She was awesome. She took really, really good care of us. And I believe, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing she really pushed for us. Hey, we need 2 guys to fly out. They have to be the same guys. You can't have different cops every week and, showing them, how it works and all that stuff. So I'm pretty confident in saying that Rochelle Wilkos made it all happen once they made that move to Stamford. And of course, Jerry, we were all buddies. We always made a joke about, Jerry can only hang out with us for dinner for a short period of time. And then he gets dumber. He can't hang out with a bunch of security guys for more than an hour and a half. And then he's got to go back to reading his books and doing all that stuff, super guy, super intelligent guy. But we always joked about that. Like, okay, Jerry had enough of us. He's got to go,
Yeah. Now, how did they find the guys in Stamford? Was there like a casting call that was put out or something?
I don't know exactly. I think they were trying to do kind of the same thing, get police officers. But again, you couldn't have active police officers because they weren't allowed to do security unless it went through their department. Right. So I think the guy who ran the security, I think he was a retired state trooper or something. And then he knew guys. And then it kind of got away from having police as security. So when I think I was the last survivor on the show as far as police go. I was Pete and I would travel, but then Pete's time ended, and then I was still going out there for another 4 years by myself. Right. And I was the only policeman left. Mm-hmm. they had the big muscle guy, Chris, was a lieutenant on the fire department. There was a couple other guys that were firemen. So they had some kind of connection with firemen. And then part of our job was just keeping those guys awake. You know how those firemen are. They just like to sleep. So.
Yeah, right. Well, I think I met a few of them when I came to the show. I think it was Bob. Saw him when I came in the door.
But he was the state trooper. He was a retired state trooper. So they had to kind of find retired guys that could, do the job.
Yeah. So I met Bob, and then I saw Chris and Harold when I came in.
Okay.
And then met you and Pete. We took the picture, and that's the guys that were there. And Dan Peterson, met him that day too.
Yep, he was there with me all the way to the end too. Dan was there a couple years, and I think Bob, they made him I don't know, he was some kind of boss there, something like that. I don't know. But yeah. At the end was me, myself, Dan, and then Chris was there too. And then when that show ended, and then Judge Jerry came around, and I did 1 year with him. I was pretty fucking upset, to be honest with you. I was trying to get that bailiff job. All those years of traveling, going back and forth, no sleep. Like, man, here's the payoff. Jerry's got another show, and there's a bailiff job.
Yeah.
Which really requires you to have rapport or a banter back and forth. There's really no lines or anything. You just kind of stand there and do nothing. But you kind of have to know the judge and the bailiff have to know each other. You can't just stand like a lump on a log and not know each other. That's where camaraderie comes in. And at that point, I knew Jerry for almost 13 years. And I was kind of like, oh man, I would be perfect for that job.
For sure.
And then, whatever excuse they came up with or whatever they decided to tell people, but for whatever reason, they hired somebody that had nothing to do with Springer. I think that was their excuse was, we don't want it to look like the Springer show. So we had to go hire somebody that didn't know Jerry. And I don't know for sure, but I don't know how well that went, I think bailiff judge relationship is pretty important and can't really be scripted, right? I mean, you gotta know when to laugh and know when he's being silly and know when he's kind of talking to you or making a personal joke about you when no one else knows. Like, that's what makes it funny. No one there really wanted to hear that. They had their vision of what they needed to do to hire a bailiff or whatever. So I was pretty fucking pissed about that. And but I continued to work with Jerry. He always wanted me to be with him, and I wasn't really even working for the show. I was just working personally for Jerry. I would, Jerry, hey, just get here when you can. I just want you to hang with me and make sure I'm safe. And so I was always just with him. When I got to the show, I didn't report to anybody but Jerry. And, he always took, I can't stress it to say, what a generous person he was and how lucky I was to meet him. And he always took good care of me. And, that goes for Rochelle too. When I was on the show, she was great. But Jerry he's one of a kind, and you hear stories about actors and famous people and stuff, and what they're not very nice people. This guy is one of a kind for sure. So, and then the COVID hit. I was invited to come back. I still talk to Jerry on a pretty regular basis. I just spoke with him right before Thanksgiving. I wanted to see if he was coming in the city to Chicago, and so we still stay in touch, and very, very lucky to have to stay in touch with Jerry. And then he invited me to go back, but it was kind of goofy because the whole COVID thing, and I said no, because I don't want to get stuck there. And then there's restrictions and all that stuff. So, and then I'm right now in 2017, I have a business partner, but we opened up a boxing gym in Des Plaines, just outside of of Chicago, just right next to O'Hare Airport.
Okay.
And it's called Gregory Boxing and Muay Thai. My partner is Wayne Gregory. If you just go to YouTube, put up Wayne Gregory, and there's a bunch of stuff that pops up. Very well known in the fighting industry. He was the first American to go to Thailand.
Huge wrestling fan. The old Bam Bam Bigelow, like Randy Savage, those guys.
Yeah. Those, when I was a kid, those were my guys. I just went, my son is 8, and he's a big wrestling fan. And I just met Tony Khan, who owns AEW. And I met him when I was on the police department, and we exchanged numbers and stuff. And, man, right before Thanksgiving, he called me out of nowhere, put us in the second row. And it was, it was awesome. And, man, they do a really good job. That AEW does a fantastic job. And live is even better, but it's nonstop. There's no, like, breaks. They go from one match to the next. And from the match just ended, you're backstage, listening to, an argument. And then, bam, you're right back on the stage and there's another fight. And then you're back, like, the way they do it is really, really cool. I'm a huge fan of that. And Tony Khan seems like he's the right guy for that job. That seems like it's going very well ratings wise and stuff too. And then Sting walks out. I said,
"Oh, what?
Well, how old is Sting? I didn't know he'd
be like 60 at least.
68. Somebody said.
Yeah.
Oh man, I hope I look like that when I'm 60. I wish I looked like that right now. Still pretty big, But he came. Oh my God, my son didn't know who that was.
Oh yeah, different generation.
And he's like, I thought he was done. I'm like, oh man, I think they get rid of these guys. There was another guy there too that was really jacked. I forget his name, but he was in WWE a long time ago, and now no, I didn't see him. He was like he's like a blonde hair guy, but he looked. I mean, he's getting old. All those guys are. Even CM Punk is getting pretty old. I mean, these guys, they got a pretty rough lifestyle.
They do. Have you been watching Dark Side of the Ring?
I have seen some. I like them. I don't watch them on a regular basis, but there are some real good ones. And then some of the documentaries, not the Dark Side of the Ring, but like the Andre the Giant documentary was a great one.
Fantastic, yeah.
Did you see the Iron Sheik documentary?
I haven't seen that one. No.
That's awesome one. That's one of the best ones because the Iron Sheik was the real deal. He was like an Iranian gold medalist Greco-Roman wrestler. So they brought him, and he was like, they call him the ultimate heel, the greatest heel in the history of wrestling, because what was going on in our country at the time. And then you got this guy that just hates America. And then Ivan Volkov was his partner. And it was like, man, people just really genuinely hated him. They forgot all about wrestling when he came out, and he just hated him. And they say, if you watch that documentary, they say like that was the real deal. Like, that's a bad dude. Don't mess up in the ring and accidentally hit him or do anything. Like, he's a real tough guy, But it was a pretty cool documentary. And then he did. I think he was broke for a little bit. Maybe, I don't know exactly what happened. And then he got kind of famous on YouTube again. Yeah. And it was a good documentary. And the Andre the Giant one was good. And there's out there. I think they're making a Hulk Hogan movie that I heard about.
That too, yeah.
But that would, I'd like to see that.
I have Andre's ranch down in North Carolina, and that's where my parents live. Is right on the Virginia-North Carolina border. So it's only like an hour's drive from where Andre lived to where my parents live. And I told him, I said, let's just ride down there and see what's up with that property and ask people, like, see what's going on, because I think they ought to make it a museum.
Sure. Yeah.
Still there. Why not? It's huge. I mean, it was where he retires, where he died was on that ranch.
Well, so, there's like a show. I don't know if it's that Dark Side of the Ring where they kind of go around and they like buy memorabilia. You know what I'm talking about? There's a show where what's his name? Mick Foley, I believe, goes around and he like looks for like Macho Man's original robe Hogan's trunks, and they put it in this museum. And that would be pretty cool to go there and find some stuff at that place and put that in the museum, which is a great idea for a show. But aside from the show, that's a great idea. They should have, a WWE, or I don't know, people don't call it WWF anymore. But when I was a kid, it was WWF.
Well, now it's the World Wildlife Federation. So,
well, I don't know. I looked it up I think it was like 2002, maybe 1999. Everybody, gets so excited to sue other people. It's pretty ridiculous. But I guess the World Wildlife Federation had that first, those initials, and they sued and they won. So they switched it to, World Wrestling Entertainment. So, but yeah, when I was a kid, it was WWF.
Well, and I met Randy when I was 4, Randy Macho Man. I met him. He came in. I was in the hospital.
Wow.
I almost died when I was 4 of a disease called Kawasaki that causes aneurysms of the heart. I mean, it was pretty serious. They didn't think I was going to make it.
Holy cow.
Duke University Hospital in North Carolina, and I had to be in quarantine for 6 months after I came out of the hospital because my immune system was just shit.
Yeah.
And there was a knock at the door, and it was a Macho Man. And I mean, he had Gorgeous George on his arm. Yeah. And they both came in there. He had it was when he was decked out in all black. He had the black shades, the frilly.
Okay.
And I mean, he was, doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it scared the shit out of me. I had no idea who he was or what was going on. My dad thought that, the president had walked in. My dad was just geeking, like such a huge fan. So he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I scared him," and he went out of the room. My dad just ran behind him and was like, "Can you sign this autograph?" He gave him a signed Slim Jim poster when he was doing this.
Oh wow! Holy cow! What year was that? What year was that? Because that's
98.
That's WWF, right?
It was 1998.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he gave me that poster, and it says "To Mark, the Macho Man," and it's him with the Slim Jims, and I lost it.
Yeah.
But then I recently found it in a bunch of old stuff that was in a box, and I put it on my autograph wall. I don't have it here. I have it in my parents' house.
Yeah.
And I hold on to that like it's a treasure. I mean, I'm like,
for sure.
I can't. Yeah, I said, I wish I'd just been a little bit older to appreciate that, because now I would have been picking his brain and really wanted to talk to him. But, kids don't. I was really sick and I didn't understand. This big dude, huge guy comes in there yelling and screaming. I'm like, get out of here,
Here's when we were on the show the first time, they were all Springer fans. I'm talking about nice people, by the way. They're all those wrestlers are just the nicest people. But they would all, walking down the hallway, they knew Jerry was in the guest room, so they would all walk in, knock on the door, and hey, I'd like to say hi to Jerry, and hey, we'll watch your show. Every single wrestler stopped in. It was pretty awesome. The Big Show had to duck his head to get in the doorway. That was pretty cool. Oh man, look at this. This guy can't even get in the doorway. But here's the biggest guy I ever met. So you have a doorway. I don't know. I'm looking at a doorway now. I don't know, 3 feet wide, your average doorway. Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, was standing in the doorway, and his ass and his back was touching the doorway, and his belly button was touching the other side of the door frame. So that's how wide that guy. Just imagine that. So when we get off, just stand in the doorway, put your back on the door, and then just look, and you got 2 feet left. That's how big that guy was. That was by far, that was the biggest guy I ever saw, is that he took up the entire door frame from ass to belly button. And it was, Pete and I were in there, and another story, we saw Ricky Steamboat, and we thought it was the coolest thing. And Pete had trying to figure out a way to talk to him. So he goes, I'm gonna go talk to Ricky Steamboat. I'm like, oh man, and, one of us had to stay back and watch Jerry. This is before the show started. So he goes up to him and he asks him, what the best way to get in the ring was. And Steamboat was awesome. He stopped doing whatever he was doing, brought Pete in the ring and showed him a couple of different ways. And Pete was so excited about it. Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah.
So he comes back. And I'm like, oh, dude, you just met Ricky Steamboat. He's like, oh, it was awesome. Mr. Steamboat was awesome. We were like two little kids, so excited to, I used to watch him as a little kid. He had that feud going with Macho Man. That was like I think that was Macho Man's first big feud. Yeah. I think Steamboat was the Intercontinental champion at the time, or maybe, I don't know if you remember Tito Santana, but he was the Intercontinental champion for a while too. But I think that was when I was watching, as a little kid, Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man had a big battle.
That's awesome. And I remember when you guys did that. I mean, you had this one guy up on the ropes, and he was a big guy too. I forgot what his name was, and he's like doing like this, and you guys are doing everything you can to keep him back. Like.
Hey, so this is Pete will love this story. It's kind of embarrassing for me, but you can't make fun of yourself. Who can you make fun of, right? So we were told to both of us. His name was Masters. I want to say Kenny Masters, and his move was the Master Lock. All right. Well, anyways, so we're supposed to both hold him back, and he had kind of told us on the side, like, hey, that doesn't look good, both of you guys holding me back or whatever. Maybe just one of you guys, I might have the story a little off, but what happens is we're in the ring, he's all oiled up, he's a big dude, he's all oiled up, and the Great Khali, I think, was the other guy. Well, anyways, he starts to go after him, so I grab him and I have him in the corner. And then he jumps up on a rope on the second. So now I'm holding him, but his cock is right on my face. So I'm holding him, and I'm like, oh, man, I can't believe this is happening. And I look straight ahead, and there's a camera, like, zoomed right in at me. I look over, and Pete is dying laughing. We're in the ring. You could probably, if you YouTube it, you can probably see. So I'm all greasy because he has baby oil. I'm all greasy, and then I got one dry spot. And I was like, oh, that was the worst. And I told Pete, I said, oh, maybe they didn't get it on camera. He's like, oh, they got it on camera. So that was my unforgettable WWE moment. But then Jerry, the second time we went on, everybody was so mad at me. Jerry got hurt on the show, right? Rolling around with the Bella twins. So the only one who appreciated that was Jerry. So I didn't go into the ring on time. I don't know, I missed my cue or whatever. So I'm getting calls from the executive producer, the producer, Jerry, okay? I'm like, yeah, he's fine. Like, everybody thought like Jerry had to go to the hospital because he got carried off on a stretcher.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was fun. I told Jerry, I said, you're welcome. I let you roll around with the Bella twins. Everybody's so mad at me. Boy, what a bad thing to happen, right?
Meanwhile, he's having a great time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. For sure. Yeah, it was great. Yeah. So, being on the show, we got to do a ton of great things, and some of the best, a lot of best memories I have are just being with Jerry, and Pete was a childhood friend of mine, and we were like a married couple. We'd work together, then we'd get on the plane, go to work, come back, work together again. Like we were together a lot, but I consider myself lucky to have had that job. So,
well, were there any moments on the show where, like, I don't know, because I know the audience like to try to fight guests sometimes during the Q&A, and like the guests sometimes seem like you guys couldn't control them. Like, no matter what you guys did, they're still trying to go crazy. Were there any times where it actually got serious? It wasn't funny anymore. Like, you had to take some guests backstage and like deal with them, or audience members for like acting out?
I don't ever remember audience members not being able to control audience member. But I'll say this though, the best shows that we've ever had, and I think they were labeled audience meets guest or however it was. So what would happen is somebody would call the show, hey, my name is Greg. I just watched this episode. This guy cheated on his wife with his brother's wife or whatever. That happened to me, and that guy's an asshole.
Right.
So they, okay, come on the show. So he would come on the show, and those would be the best shows because those people never met. So that guy would be on the stage telling his story, and then here comes the guy basically getting called out that doesn't even know this guy. So we are kind of given a heads up, like, hey, these guys, this might get real, like real, like serious. And we, as the security guys, we appreciated those shows. I wish they would have that every week, because that was real. Like those guys were really trying to hurt each other, and we had to work. And we know if we go backstage and, we're like, oh man, that was awesome. To us, that's an awesome show.
Right.
And those always were like that, because they didn't know each other. They weren't holding back. I don't want to be a bitch on stage to this guy. This guy called the show, so I'm not going to be a bitch. And they would fight. And those were the best shows by far. I don't know if everybody else saw it that way, but as security guys, we were like, oh yeah, that's a good one. I mean, those, that's a good show. Even if they just weren't very charismatic, or they weren't really good, if there's a good fight, that's a good show.
Oh yeah, that's what people want to see when they watch. Yeah, they're not watching for the talking; they're watching for the fights.
For sure. And those specific shows where they didn't know each other, audience member meets guest, or some audience member meets former guest. It only happened once in a while, but when they told us that's what the show is today, we were like, oh man, that's awesome. This is gonna be a good one, And those were by far the best. But as far as audience goes, I don't ever really remember. A couple times an audience member will run up on stage, but they're just trying to be funny with their friends, or shit like that. But it wasn't. Never did we have to fight with any of them. And then the guests, I would say for the most part, they're probably all pretty good people. They got busted cheating on their wife or something like that, and they're not really there to fight us. And our number one job was to keep Jerry safe. And no one ever, that I remember, no one ever wanted to hurt Jerry. I mean,
no,
man, they get to travel, probably go on a plane for the very first time in their life.
Yeah. And see a city that's New York City. You're right there at New York City.
Yeah. I mean, travel, they've probably never been on a plane before in their life, and they get to go on their favorite show. And, the show was real good with the guests too, from what I saw. Everybody, if you ask to meet Jerry, you get to meet Jerry, and Jerry will go in the green rooms and shake hands and stuff. And he was super generous that way. I think people left that show thinking that they just did the coolest thing in their life. So,
and they probably did.
they probably did. Yeah.
Well, I bet it was a different situation with Wilkos, because I know you've done some security for him for his show too. I bet it was a whole different vibe going in there, because it's very
so those people are not good people. All those guests are bad people. They're not. They all either they serve time, or they're getting busted for the first time, doing really bad stuff. So I would literally, and I'll just speak for myself, I would sit in that audience fucking pissed. I would sit there the whole show listening to this story, just getting like, oh man, this fucking guy needs to get it. This is a bad guy right here. Like, I would just sit there mad, and I would look around and mainly at the other security guys, and they're all mad too. And it's like, oh man, if I just had the chance, I just dreaming in my mind what I would do to this guy or this, they're just bad. They're just bad people. So that show itself, I think was a great show for viewers, and they really got into it, and they really got a lot of stuff done, I think, on that show, as far as like justice and making the victim feel good, and finally giving the victim some relief in their life, on that end. But to sit there and watch it as a security guy and as a man with kids, I did not enjoy. It was a job, but that was not an enjoyable job, because those were some bad people, and I didn't enjoy that at all.
I don't know how Mike's done it. Mike McDermott's done it all these years.
He's been doing it from day one. So we were doing it together, and then we were doing it together. And then I think when Springer ended, I was just kind of doing both. I couldn't stay away from work that many days. I would literally take one of my or both of my days off that I had and be in Stanford to do the spring. So only once in a while could I take an extra day, you know, if somebody couldn't make it to the show. So I wasn't doing it a lot. When it was in Chicago, I was, oh man, that was awesome. I would do Springer. I think it was Monday, Tuesday, and then Wilkos Wednesday, Thursday. And the way the schedule worked is you'd basically work from like 2 in the afternoon to like 9. And my shift on the police department was 9 to 5. So I would just work all day, all night, but I never had to miss work or take time or anything like that. So it was super convenient.
Right.
And then once it went to Stanford, I just did it once in a while, you know, if they needed help or something like that. And again, that's a Rochelle Wilkos, you know, always asking and always looking out for us and stuff like that. So she's amazing. And
I went to the show. I went to Wilkos right before COVID. I actually went January 2020, and I feel you, because I was sitting there with my girlfriend. She didn't even know what we were doing. I told her, this is some serious shit. I said, seriously.
Yeah.
And it was a molestation case, and that pisses me off more than anything when I hear about somebody messing with kids. I can't stand it. I'm automatically ready to just throw hands with anybody that does that shit. And sure enough, the guy failed the lie detector. And I honestly was sitting there, and I could feel myself, and I'm just an audience member, and I could feel myself getting so mad. And I mean, my blood pressure shot up, no telling. My heart was going like this. And, you know, of course, Mike ran up there to stop the fight that was going to happen. And the father was on the stage, and he actually didn't rush him like sometimes they do. He stood back and listened to what he was telling him to do. And I told, they separated and went to commercial. And I told my girlfriend, I said, look, I said, that's a good thing that wasn't me. I said, because 5 of those guys couldn't have kept me off him. He would have went down. I would have just taken the charge. I would have just went to jail, because tough shit. I'm not going to.
So now imagine, all right, now imagine this. You're feeling that way, right? Just like probably every man in that audience is. Now you have a job to do. You have to take that guy, bring him to his room, get his stuff, walk him out to his car, make sure he's taken care of, because he's a guest on the show. So you have a job to do. But how easy is it to do that job when you want to fucking strangle this guy? That's not easy. So there was a lot of frustrating moments on that show, for sure, as a security guy, you know.
Yeah. Well, I can only imagine. And I told her, I said, I couldn't come see this every day. I said, I just I can't deal with stuff like that. And I don't even have kids, but that just bothered me.
Yeah. Well, you're a normal person, and with you know, it's just, no one wants to. That's great. And that's just one example. That's just, there's all kinds of stories, different stories, and they're just all bad. Everybody on that show is you know, and the only thing you can feel good about at the end of the day is that hopefully this victim, you know, got some sense of relief or closure. And that's where the show comes in, where this is what the show is doing good for people. But man, when you're hearing the stories and what you're hearing live is probably way different than what you're watching on TV. I'm just guessing they got to edit a lot of that stuff out. Yeah. So to just sit there in the front row and oh man, this guy.
We were right in the front row, and I was like, I had to tell myself, I was like, don't do it, Mark, don't do it. And I was like, I really. She's like, you want to stay for the other show? I said, no. I said, I don't want to.
Yeah, right. No, I'm good.
No, I was serious. It really bothered me. I just
So imagine McDermott sitting through 12 years of those shows. Oh man, and that guy's
compensated well. I hope he's compensated well. Because I'm serious. I mean, that's just
that's a tough one. I love the opportunity, and everybody that works there, a lot of the same people from Springer, and but those are tough ones to sit through, and imagine Steve, cop, a Marine, he's a man's man, and he's up there listening to these stories, and I'm sure he's thinking I have a show to do, but man, I want to give it to this guy. This is unbelievable that this guy got away with this for all these years, or whatever the story is. But yeah, really, that was a rough one to get through sometimes, to get through that show,
Yeah. Well, I want to get back onto some more positive notes. Did you ever have a favorite guest on Springer? Was there ever a guest that came on that really just stuck in your mind as like, this guy's hilarious or whatever?
Well, here's a guy. His name was the Paw. I don't know if you remember that guy. So the Paw,
the guy with the arm that's yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
So here, I'll tell you my funny story. Why I'll never forget him is, once in a while they'll pull us aside before the show and kind of give us a heads up. Hey, this dude's coming on the show. The producers say that this guy is a pretty tough guy. So just a heads up. And we're like, yeah, okay. We're always thinking like that. What do they know? We're fine. So anyways, here comes this guy, and he's got one arm. And I remember looking over at Pete, and he looks over at me like, this is the guy they're talking about? Like, how tough could he be?
Yeah.
So anyway, Pete walks up there nonchalantly, and here comes the guest, and they kind of get face to face. And out of nowhere, I think it was his right arm. And he bang, and he was legit tough. And he cracks this guy with his paw.
Yeah.
And the dude goes down, and I'm like, oh no, how did we let that happen? So we run up, and I remember looking over at Rochelle. She's like, hey, I gave you guys like a heads up. Like, what are you doing? How'd you let that happen? So we're like, hey, we're sorry. Like, I don't know. Sorry. A couple months go by. It's the very first time that Pete can't travel. He had some court case. He had something going on with work. He just couldn't make it. So it's my first time. I'm gonna be the lead guy, the lead security guy. So right before I left, we leave at 6 a.m. Our flight leaves at 6. And I remember going from work to the airport, and 6 o'clock, Pete's calling me. I'm like, hey, what's up? What are you doing up? He's like, hey man, just, good luck this week. Just, don't fuck up. You're by yourself. And we know too, like if we mess up, somebody gets hurt. Really, that's our only job. Make sure nobody gets hurt and make sure nothing happens to Jerry.
Right.
So if it does, we're thinking like they're just going to dump us. Like, why are we going to continue to fly these guys out and people are getting hurt? So we knew like we got to be, extra careful. So I'm like, yeah, I got it. And I wasn't cocky about it. I was just like, yeah, I got it. I've been doing it for years. I got it. So now we got there that morning. We go, and Pete calls me again. Hey, you all good? I go, yeah, man, I'm all good. I got it. He's like, all right, just call me later. Let me know how your first day went. All right, good luck. All right, man, talk to you later. The show's about to start, and Rochelle goes, hey, just a heads up, pretty tough guy today. First show. I know you're going to do great. I have all the confidence in the world with you, but just so you know, the first guy is pretty tough. I don't know if you remember him, but his name is the Paw. And I go, oh, shit, yeah, I remember. I'm like, oh, man, I got to deal with this guy. I'm like, oh, man. So I'm like, okay. So I'm being super, super cautious. And I'm fortunate enough to have already seen him. I know what he's going to do. He's going to throw that right hook. And I'm getting closer. I'm getting close. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, I'm going to look like the hero. As soon as he goes to throw it, I'm going to bang, and I'm going to catch it. And everybody's going to go crazy. Security to the rescue, hero, catches, pretty cool. And I got it all played out in my head. And I'm getting closer, and I'm watching. And he instead of throwing the paw, with his left hand right under my chin, bang, and just lays the guy out. And oh, man. I'm like, oh, no. So I look over at Rochelle, and she's like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, no. So I'm like, I look at him like, oh, come on, man. Like, I wanted to say, like, so anyways, afterwards, everybody's cool. He was okay. The rest of the day went great. But I remember Pete called me after. He's like, how'd it go? How'd your first? I go, dude, you're not going to believe. The first was the paw. He goes, "Ooh, that guy's tough." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you didn't let him hit the guy, did you?" I go, "Well,
not really."
He didn't throw the right hook. He kind of slid a jab. He goes, "Oh, nice move." I go, "Yeah, everything's okay. No one's mad. Everything's good." So yeah, but that's my memorable. The one I always think of is the paw, and then there are other guys like Kung Fu Hillbilly was a good one, and then there was a girl. She was like a porn, she just broke in the porn business, and she was so proud of it, and she's telling her story, and I just remember her saying, like, basically like rub it in everybody's face, and didn't think anything was wrong with it. Like, she's a porn star, and she used to get in fights because she would sleep with all the guys at the park and get in fight with all their girlfriends. And I just remember her sitting there with this bright, obnoxious pink dress, like she was going to the ball, and she's just like, "And look at me now." For whatever reason, I couldn't stop laughing, and I had to like leave the front row. I couldn't. It was just so, the way she did it, she was so proud of herself, and just didn't see anything wrong with anything. And I remember that one too, and I couldn't stop laughing.
Right.
For that one. But there's a lot of moments like that, where you just, the first season or first half season, you're trying to figure it out. Like, do I need to be serious up here? Like, I can't stand up here with a straight face. Like, that doesn't make sense. And I think it was Rochelle was like, just be yourself. If you want to laugh, laugh. And that's all I needed to hear. And you see me on stage a lot, and I'm always laughing or a big smile, and I just didn't hold back.
Same with Pete. It's funny because I just watched one, and there was this redneck guy came on. He's like, "Yeah, I had to use this girl's bathroom because I was at work and ate a big meal, and I had to go to the bathroom and do number 2." And Pete's just dying up there.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like,
tons of moments like that for sure. So lots of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever party with these guys or the guests, or like go out to
No,
drink?
none of that. No, no, never. They would go in Chicago. I think there was a hotel that they stayed in, but once the show was over, you never even saw them. They would just, I think there was a group of interns or whatever that would just take them, put them in their car, and get them out. But no, I would never. We'd never even see them outside of the show.
Did you ever have like a bad injury from breaking up any fights on the show?
Yeah, I had a lot, and no one ever even knew about it. So you're breaking news right here. You're disclosing it. I tore my my calf muscle. I was breaking up a fight, and it like tore. But I just made it through the show. I broke my finger probably 4 different times. We kind of had to have a technique where what I would do is somebody throw a punch and you'd go like this, or you go to block it and they'd hit your fingers. And I broke my same finger probably 4 times on the show. And then, we'd like, you got to try to keep a closed fist when you're blocking punches or, breaking stuff up, because once those fingers are out. But I had I broke my fingers a couple times. There was a transvestite. She came swinging wild, and she was about to get my face. I saw it last second, and she got my, like, right under my neck and my shirt. When I went backstage, I pulled my shirt out, and her nail fell out. Her nail came off into my chest, and I had a pretty nice scratch. I got scars all over my arm from nails. So yeah, there was little injuries here and there. Nothing major. I know Pete had a pretty good one.
Right? Yeah.
But yep. But yeah, my calf was my big one. Then a couple broken fingers. But you just push through. It's part of the deal. I would have been real mad if I got my face scratched. That would be terrible.
Oh yeah.
Not that I'm so handsome. You don't want to get your face scratched. But no. Yeah. No. Definitely, I got scars up and down my arm, on both arms, just from nails, like nail scratches and stuff like that. But yeah, no No regrets at all. The little minor stuff, but I broke my finger a couple times on the stage.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I knew you did some film work too. Like you mentioned Family Feud and Raw, but Nightmare on Elm Street. I remember you from Nightmare on Elm Street.
So that was, you know what, that was just being a nice person. Some guy came up to me. I was in uniform and just started talking to me, and I was being nice. He asked if he can check out the police car and stuff, and I did. And I always just try to be nice to everybody, that as long as they don't give me a reason not to be.
Right.
And that guy ended up being a big Hollywood producer, and out of nowhere we exchanged numbers, and he called me up one day and said, "Hey, do you want to be in this movie?" And I said, "Yeah." And Pete and I did a scene together, and then that night or the next night he said, hey, there's a role just opened up. Do you want to be? Can you play a security guard, like a jail guard? Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh man, that's perfect." So I did it, and turned out pretty good. I think they gave me a uniform one size too small. Everybody teases me about that, but it was great. I had a couple lines, and I just got a check recently. So that was 2010. I'm still getting paid for that. I think it was $3.18 I got. So I'm still getting checks. I'm living large off those big checks.
Those residuals are nice. They're really nice.
Yeah. Well, you figure if you're a real actor and you got like 20 things and you're just getting checks all the time, man, that's pretty good. That's a nice little living right there.
Well, I've always admired the character actors, the guys that show up in everything, but you don't really know their name. Those are the guys I've always admired, because they're in, they make a ton of money working because they're in everything.
So recently I was looking up guys just to see who have like the most films or been in the most most amount of stuff. Do you remember the guy that was fighting Philo Beto in Every Which Way But Loose, or Every Which Way You Can? He was the other fighter. He had a mustache.
Oh yeah.
Like a strong guy, and that's who he was fighting in the part. That was his big rivalry, his Street Fighter.
Yeah.
So that guy has been in a million things, but you would never recognize him. He's been in like every TV show in the 70s and 80s and 90s. He's been in everything, like 500 appearances. Like he's just been in everything, but you wouldn't know that guy's name, and he's never been a lead. He's just in everything. Absolutely everything. But that guy right there, if you looked him up, I don't even know his name, but if you looked him up, you'd be like, oh man, this guy was in everything, from Matlock to Riptide to Magnum PI to Friends to like he was in everything. And that's, there's a couple guys like that, but that guy stands out because I thought I'd never seen him before, until you look him up and you're like, oh, man, he had a small role in there. Oh, he has a small role in there. I mean, imagine that guy's residuals. He's getting stuff all the way from the late 60s.
Yeah, well, I was talking when we talked to Pete, I was talking to him about, he's thinking about getting an agent out in Honolulu.
Yeah.
In Hawaii. And I told him, I said, yeah, I could do it. I said, what does it hurt, And so he texted me like about a week later. He's like, you inspired me to get my agent, and I'm going to get the agent out in Honolulu.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, I'm glad to hear it, because like I said, I do a lot of acting stuff, screen stuff that comes to like I did Wonder Woman 2 when it came through here.
Okay.
And, House of Cards shot here for a long time. I was a body double for them. So I met like Diane Lane and Robin Wright from Forrest Gump, and Gal Gadot was standing right in front of me. Like, couldn't believe that. Highest paid actress in the world standing right in front of me. That was pretty surreal.
Sure.
So these people, and everybody very nice. I've never met anybody who I didn't like of all the people I've met. Everybody's been really friendly. Jeff Daniels did the Comey Rule. We shot that here. And I do a lot of stand-in stuff too when I'm not like in a role, an actual role. And so I met, all these people, nice people. And I would love to be one of those character actors that does that is anything, but, can still go to the grocery store and not be mobbed,
Sure.
That's my goal.
That's a good life, right? Yeah, you get to do what you love, and that's awesome. A friend of mine who's an actor said, if you're an actor, don't wait around for like roles. Like, don't have your mindset. Just if you're an actor, that's your job. Just work, do a commercial, stand in, just do whatever. Just work. You're just opened up our second location close by this one, so we have 2 gyms right now. My plan would, we would plan on having a few of them, and then when I could retire and just just bounce around from gym to gym. And, so far, so good. I couldn't be happier, with the gyms right now and everything we got going on. We just had our first amateur show, and we call it the Gregory Boxing Invitational. We're the only invitational in the state of Illinois. We had 18 fights, and it was a way to showcase our fighters, our amateur fighters. We had probably had 5 kids that had never fought before.
Wow.
So really exciting to see that. Our 16-year-old girl, we're going to nationals this week. We couldn't find her a fighter anywhere close by, so we found a girl in Colorado that we flew in to fight her, and that was probably the fight of the night. That was awesome. She won. She'll actually probably see that girl at the national tournament. So lots of exciting stuff. And then you add Juliana Pena, and the 2 weekends ago we had 2 state champions, a 16-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl won the state championship. Wow. So lots of good stuff, and very rewarding too. You see these kids, they come in shy, and once they get going and they are discovering for the first time sometimes that they're good at something, and just to see them blossom and become something special, and you just see how the confidence in them. It's like, oh man, that's awesome. So that's why I do it. I love it. I love watching these kids get better, and just I watch it's nice to see them gain confidence and feel good about themselves. And so, and a lot of these kids, especially the high school kids, they haven't done anything before, and they're just, coming in for the first time, or a parent will, hey, my son's having a tough time at school. If he can just, be confident. And, it's great to see, it's a great sport, and, we're trying to make it better.
Well, that's amazing. Now, where can, if anyone sees this and, would love to support or stop in or follow you anywhere?
Go to GregoryBoxing.com. And on there, we have our YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. You can click everything through the GregoryBoxing.com. We have how-to videos, and we have a lot of cool videos at the gym. And you really, after watching the videos and going through, and they have the biographies of all the trainers and stuff like that, you get a pretty good feel for the gym. So GregoryBoxing.com is if anybody's interested, just go on that and navigate your way through the website, and you find a lot of cool stuff.
And I can speak for myself. I've been to the website. I've seen a few of the videos. That gym looks awesome. Like anytime I come to Chicago, that's where I'm stopping.
Oh man, I can't wait.
Really, I'm coming. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
a couple years I'll get out there.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Awesome.
But well, this has been a lot of fun. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you talking to me about all this stuff.
I've been kind of, I miss the show. I miss Jerry. I've made a lot of great friends. And when Pete told me about this, I said, oh man, I will talk to that guy anytime. I love talking about this stuff. Can't really sit around and talk to people about this because they don't understand it. It's like,
I've been watching since 2006.
Yeah.
Every week.
My pleasure. And you ever need anything from me? And then on a side note, when you're done with this, send me your address. I'll send you some stuff from the gym and stuff.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
But thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff. If I didn't have to teach a class in 20 minutes, I'd talk for another 2 hours.
Oh, I could too. Trust me. I mean, I really could. I'm going to get this together, all this edited together, and
okay.
I'll post it. I mean, if you're on Facebook, follow us, follow the Jerry Springer Security page. I post a lot of clips. You're in like a lot of the clips I post. A lot of them. I just found a Thanksgiving one where like they're doing the standing 8 count.
Yeah.
When you were breaking up a fight, and then every security person comes up and like does the standing 8 count, slaps you, and like that's on there. You need to go check that out. That's pretty cool.
I don't even remember that one. I do. I remember a lot of the food fights and stuff, and they're those were a lot of fun. But I remember Pete and I would get so excited when we would get there, and then we'd go look at the stage before the audience is even there, and there would be a ring set up, and we're like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. We don't know what we're doing today, but there's a boxing ring here. This is going to be great. So yeah, lots of fun stuff. I definitely miss a lot of them. I did for 12 years. So lots of awesome memories, no bad ones. And I'm still friends with Jerry, and that's a blessing for sure. That's a great man right there.
You still talk to like the guys who you worked with as well?
Yeah, once in a while. I see McDermott once in a while. He always calls me very last second when he needs something. But I'm in very good friends with Pete still. He's all the way in Hawaii, but we stay in touch at a regular basis. I bought a couple of his wallets for my partners. We just got those. And I tell you what, that's when he does something, I've known him since I was a kid. He does it right. Like he doesn't skimp on anything. He's going to be very successful with those wallets. And it'll be done just because of the quality of those. I mean, you got one, so.
Oh yeah, mine's awesome. I got bad motherfuckers.
They're unbelievable. I never really had nice things like that, and to have that, it's like I didn't know they had wallets that could be this nice. Like you just figure it's something you put your money and a couple IDs in, but it's really I love it, and everybody I know talks about it. They're really
I want one like yours. I saw yours when he posted on Instagram. I want one of yours. Yeah. I want the blue one. I want the blue one, and I want one like you have.
Yeah, it's awesome. I got like this. So he put the Gregory logo on it.
That's so cool.
Which was super cool. My initials, and then this blue stitching. Yeah, it's unreal. I don't know. I guess you can go to one of those expensive stores, downtown, and maybe find a really nice wallet. But I didn't know they had wallets like that. I just always had a cheap. I think I went for years with a rubber band, on my. Yeah. But yeah,
they're awesome. Thread in mine too, and he told me. Well, he texted me one day. I didn't get back to him. He's like, "You want red or blue thread or something?" And he said, "Well, I made a decision for you, blue, and it was the best decision." I mean, he's like that. He's got an eye for that stuff, and he.
Well, I say you just do whatever you think is best. I don't know, So yeah, we couldn't be happier with the wallet. So whatever, I always say whatever he decides to do after the police, he'll be super successful at it. Whether it's acting or. I didn't know he made wallets, but he does now, and he does an awesome job. So he's always passionate about whatever he does. So I always knew whatever he decided to do, he'd be super successful.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. But like I said, I really appreciate you talking to me today, and I hope it was as much fun for you as it is for me, because I've been having a blast.
Yeah, I love going down memory lane like that. That's being on the Springer Show is a big part of my life. That 12 years is a long time, and mostly great memories, and met a lot of great friends and great people. And if anything else, I have some pretty great stories, probably better than anybody else at the Thanksgiving table. So
always have the more interesting story for sure.
I can go from a police story right into a Springer story, and people always ask. Tell me some more about the Springer Show. So
we might have to do this again, just from about police stories, because I'd love to hear some of those too.
For sure. Yeah, no problem. Anytime. You got my number, so you text me, and I can do this all day long.
Well, I'm always down to listen. I'm always ready to hear it.
Oh, thank you. Hey, and good luck with the show, and good luck with everything that you're doing. And and even at the police academy, when you're doing that stuff, that's that's important. That's an important role. So. You're definitely fulfilling your dream of doing some police stuff without even knowing it. It's pretty good.
Without the liability of everybody out there,
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again.
You got anytime. And then on a side note, just shoot me your address. I'll ship out some stuff to you. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Talk later. Bye-bye.